Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I am filming a tag video for you, and this is one that I've seen quite a lot of people doing and it looked quite fun, so I wasn't tagged to do it, but I thought it's a very clever tag. So that is the Briggs Book Tag. It was created by Jaded Reader, so I will link her video down below because she's got a Google Doc with all the questions in. It's very clever. So it's based on the Myers-Briggs personality profiling tests, and these tests give you a 4-letter code that sort of sums up your personality. So it's E or I for extroverted or introverted, N or S for intuition or sensing, F or T for feeling or thinking, and P or J for perceiving or judging. Jada Reader also puts in links to places you can take the test. I've taken the test several times over the years. I retook it as well for the purposes of filming this tag. I say you get given, put your pen down, one or other of those options as you go through the test. So you're either E or I, N or S, F or T, P or J. However, when I first took the test, I got the exact same score for perceiving and for judging for the P or J. And then every time I've taken the test since, I've fluctuated between those two. So for the book tag, you just have to answer the 4 questions that relate to your personality as you get on the test, and then there's one, so each set of 4 letters is given like a title and there's a question relating to that. So I'm going to do the extras as well for me, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do the question for I, N, F, and for P and J, because I'm both. And then I'm going to do the question for INFJ and for INFP. So just to explain why, as I say, my scores for those two were very close. Every time I take the test, I come up borderline between them. I flip between the two. So I tend to find that it's very much situational for me as to whether I lean more towards perceiving or judging. So judging tends to be more that you like things very neatly set out, you like clear plans, you like everything planned out, you like to know what is happening when. Whereas perceiving tends to be more, you go with the flow, you like to mix things up a bit, you're quite laid back and you don't mind how things go. And so like the difference being, like when you go on holiday somewhere, do you like to plan out everything you're going to do the next day, the night before, or do you just sort of wake up and see how you feel and what you're going to do? And so I found that for me that is very situational. So for example, if I'm arranging to meet up with one of my best friends, we'll pick a date and we might pick a time, but then we won't worry about what we're actually going to do until it gets to the day. So we know we're going to meet up. I know her well enough to trust her that, you know, she won't flake out on me, she'll be there, and it doesn't matter if we haven't planned anything, we'll think of something at the time, and that's fine. Whereas with someone I don't know at all, I'll definitely be more J. So for example, I've been trying out online dating recently, and if I'm arranging to meet up with someone that I've met online, I'll have to know the exact place, time, how long it's going to take me to get there, where can I park near there, how much is that parking going to cost me, how long is it going to take for me to walk to the car park to the place I'm meeting them. And I need to know all of this. So we need to make the plan at least a week in advance so that I can figure all this out. Do I need to do a trial run to know where I'm going, how I'm going to get there, all of that sort of stuff. So it's very much situational, depends on the people involved, how well I know them, and how comfortable I am with the situation as a whole, as to whether I'm really super laid back about it or really have to know every single detail in advance. So now you've had an insight into my soul, let's do the questions, because that's what this is actually all about. So first is I for introvert. You can be outgoing but need to recharge with some calming solitude. Where is your favourite place to read and unwind? Why is this little oasis where you choose to go? So when I'm at home, I have 2 favourite reading spots at the moment, and one is my sofa downstairs where I usually film my videos, and my second is my bed, because I love lazy Saturday mornings where I just can lie in bed and read until I feel like getting up. Other than that, the place that I read most often is probably my lunch break at work. So I have found over the years that I can make any place a cosy place to read if I have my phone and some headphones and I put some music on, and then I can just block out the world really. So while I have sort of favourite spots in the house, I don't really have sort of like a favourite cafe or park or anything, but just wherever I can go and put my headphones in and tune out the rest of the world, that is my cosy reading spot. The second letter for me is N for intuition. Some books are meant to be understood and others are meant to be explored. What book or character stands for an idea that is deeply meaningful to you? So the book I've picked for this is actually a non-fiction book. It's called The Way of Tea and Justice. So I read this a couple of years ago, and it is about the author Becca helped set up a cafe where all of the employees are women who have been rescued from trafficking or prostitution, and it is a way of helping them get their lives back on track and sort of recover their freedom, and they are helped, like given therapy and stuff like that to help them recover essentially from whatever it was that led them into that life. So it also talks about a lot about slavery and the tea trade, and how sort of efforts to try and make trade fairer in tea and coffee and other industries that often rely a lot on slavery, because a lot of people think that slavery was outlawed in the 1800s and that it no longer exists, but that is not the case, and this is something that I'm quite passionate about. I support a lot of anti-slavery charities, and yeah, it's a really big issue. Go out and educate yourselves about the slave trade, and particularly chocolate. Chocolate is terrible for this, and clothes as well, and if you can buy fair trade where possible, then that's something we definitely should all be doing to try and bring a bit more justice into the world. So something I'm really passionate about, as you can tell. So the Way of Tea and Justice is all about tea and it's about justice, which are two of my favourite things. So the next letter for me is F for feeling. Not everything needs to be realistic. Where is the fun in a world with limits? Which fantasy world do you find so atmospheric you slip inside and never want to leave? Now, I do love fantasy, it's one of my favourite genres, but for this question there was only one fantasy world that I could pick really, because it's the one that I go back to most often, and it was an important part of my childhood, and I still reread these books very regularly, and I'm just going to grab them off my shelf here. If you haven't guessed, it is the Chronicles of Narnia. I've got this lovely box set which has got the castle on the spines, and actually when you lay the books out they have the picture all linked together all through, which I really love. Narnia is such a wonderful magical world to me. I grew up reading these books and I love them so much, and yeah, never fails to cheer me up reading one of these books. Okay, let's go on to J next for judging. All play and no work leads to chaotic disorder and anarchy. Yes, it does. How do you structure and balance your reading, booktube and personal life to better use your time? So structure is one thing that I'm not always very good at. So I do find things like bulk filming really helps. This is the third of 4 videos I'm filming today. You'll be able to tell because I'll have the same outfit in all of them. You'll be able to say, oh yeah, she filmed that on the same day as she filmed those other ones. So that's something that really helps me. Also, sticking to an upload schedule is really good for me because it gives me deadlines. While I may not always love structure, I do love deadlines. I love having something to work towards. In terms of booktube filming and uploading, having bulk filming and sticking to an upload schedule is how I structure that. In terms of booktube watching, I've struggled with this particularly since starting my own channel. I found a lot of more new booktubers that I love watching, so I've subscribed to a lot of people in the last couple of months, which means that I've found it more difficult to keep track of everyone's videos. So what I'm currently doing is I'm using the Watch Later playlist quite a lot, and I'm finding that's working really well for me. So I'll go into all the new videos on my subscription feed and I'll watch a couple and I'll save a few to my Watch Later playlist, and then I'll work through those, and then by the time I get to the end of that list everyone will have made a new load of videos that I'll go in, and then I'll add them all, and it gets into a cycle. But that, I'm finding that really helpful because the last couple of weeks particularly I haven't had as much time for watching booktube, so this way I feel like I'm not missing out on the things that I really want to watch, and it means that for all the people that I'm subscribed to, I'm now not watching all of their videos. I'm being a bit more picky about what I want to watch, but actually you can't watch everything, there are not enough hours in the day. So yeah, so that's how I'm doing that. And with reading, again, some of it comes down to having deadlines. I'll set myself a target of when I want to finish a book by and try and achieve that. And yeah, so that's really helpful for things like library books. They have a natural deadline anyway. And I'll also set myself, I won't write a TBR particularly. I'll have a few ideas of what books I'm going to try and read in that month, but I'm a mood reader, so I tend to change my mind quite a lot. But I'll have a goal of how many books I want to try and finish per month, and so usually that's 8. If I get to 8, then I might try and do a couple more, or how many books, how long I think when I start reading a book, I'll work out how long I think it's going to take me to get to the end, and then I'll try and finish it in that time. Essentially is how I do that. So actually I'm more structured than I think I am. So the next one is the bonus one for me, which is P for perceiving, because as I say, I flip between the two. So TBRs are fun to construct and meant to be destroyed. I kind of already answered this, I think. Do you stick to the list or mix it up every now and then? Never stick to a list, ever. What's a book you've put down that you want to pick up but just haven't been in the mood for? So for this one, I've gone for a book that I started reading when I was studying and didn't have the opportunity to read a lot of it then. It's called Sisters in the Wilderness by Delores Williams. So this is womanist theology, which is black feminist theology. It encompasses people of colour and feminism, and that all the theology surrounding that. So this was sort of my focus for my master's dissertation was feminist theology, but I had picked a couple of sort of more in the evangelical feminism type area, and so I sort of touched a little bit on womanist theology, but I didn't get as into it as I would have liked. So my main focus in reading this book was one section of my dissertation was about female characters in the Bible and how they're portrayed and how they are responded to in scholarship. And one of those characters was Hagar, who is an Old Testament character. She is a slave girl who is the servant of Abraham and Sarah, who Abraham is the father of the Hebrew people. Modern day Jewish people all consider themselves descended from Abraham. And Hagar was a slave girl who essentially was forced to marry him to give him a child because Sarah was barren. So her story is like quite troubled, and she, because her background is as a slave girl, she has become quite emblematic for the womanist movement. So I was looking into how, I was reading this book to see how they have responded to her story and to include that. And it was really good and really challenging for me as a white person to consider theology from the perspective of a person of colour, because as a woman, in a lot of ways, I am a marginalised person, but as a white person, I'm very privileged. And yeah, it's really important to recognise privilege when we have it and to challenge it as well, and recognise where our privilege has led to the oppression of others. So, yes, right. So INFJ, the term to describe an INFJ person is the counsellor. So here it says, yes, we're a bit odd, yeah, but we're filled with intuition and empathy. What is a book you'd recommend to a friend having a hard time? It would depend on the friend. And it would depend on the situation. I mean, I can give a few examples, probably. So if it was a friend from church, there was a book that I read last autumn that really helped me, which was called Those Who Wait, by Tanya Marlow. After finishing my master's, I went through a bit of a bout of depression and postgraduate depression, I think is the term, and anxiety, and was really struggling with a lot of things and trying to figure out what I was meant to do next, and particularly waiting for my results was really difficult. So this book helped me a lot through that. So if it was, but it's I mean, it is aimed at churchy people. So if it was a friend from church, this was one that I'd probably recommend. More generally, I guess I would tell someone to read a book that they've loved in the past, that maybe a favourite childhood book, just to give them good vibes, good feelings. But I mean, everyone's different, and so a book that some people love and that helps some people, other people might hate. So like, I would go back, if I'm feeling down, I would go back to Narnia or other books that I loved as a child, but not everyone will want to do that. So I don't know, as I say, it depends on the friend and the situation and what type of books they like, which is a bit of a cop-out answer, I know, but never mind. And then INFP is the idealist. Even when conflict runs high, you can be an advocate for the other side. I do this quite a lot, actually. I'm very good at seeing both sides of an argument. So what is a book that was not well received, but you were able to find its good qualities? So I did a little bit of background research for this. I had a look on Goodreads to try and find the books where my rating was most different to the general rating, and I picked books that had a lot of ratings, because there are some books where there's hardly any ratings. So I've picked a couple, and the first one is one that its average rating is 2.92 and I gave it 4 stars, and that is A Map of Tulsa by Benjamin Lytal, I think you say that. So this was in a Ninja Book Box last year and I really enjoyed it. It was a very bittersweet story, sort of coming of age story. A young man returns to the city where he first fell in love, and it's sort of about him reminiscing over how he met his first love and looking back on that. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautifully written, as I say, very bittersweet. Really got the sense of someone who's grown up a bit returning to somewhere where they were much more immature and looking back on it. And I thought it was excellent, but it's only got 2.92 rating on Goodreads, so I liked it more than most people, apparently. And then the other one, maybe slightly even more of a difference. So this book was rated 3.51 on Goodreads and I gave it 5 stars, and that is Midnight in Austenland. This is the second book in the Austenland series by Shannon and Hale. This book made me laugh so much at one point. I was reading it in the bath and I was laughing so much that I had to put the book down away from the water because I was scared I was going to drop it in the bath because I was physically shaking with laughter. So I thought it was excellent. I thought it was really, really funny. Apparently other people haven't enjoyed it quite so much as I have. So that's the end of that tag. I'm not going to tag anyone for this one because I've made a few tag videos recently where I have tagged people, so I'm giving myself a break. Also mainly though because I know a lot of people have already done this tag. Yeah, and I know a lot of people have been tagged by those people. Not being sure who has and hasn't done this tag, I'm not going to specifically tag anyone, but if you haven't done it and you'd like to, feel free to say I tagged you, and please put your video down below so I can see it, because I love all the stuff about personalities and seeing different personalities and actually meeting people who are quite like-minded, because the most recent time I took the test, just before I filmed this, I came out as INFJ, which is one of the rarest personality types. And so I've seen a few people on BookTube make the tag and also be INFJs, so it's quite cool to see. And also I'd like to know if you're borderline on any of the letters and don't fall quite neatly into one personality type. Please let me know that too. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!